Well, that's
This is
not a good
against
one.
RHMax.
That's not a good one. I just went
What,
USD when I did it.
what was that the index of the RH ecosystem?
Oh, your charts are.
Opportunity.
Well, switch to something else. We don't want to just look at down only.
I mean, the whole crypto sphere is full of down only right now. It's
I
not
know.
just.
It's terrible.
So this is what's something that's been cool. Pulse is actually gaining on PulseX in a meaningful way. You know, and I expect this trend to continue now that we know that the amount of buy and burn is going to be reduced by 80%. We can expect that this rate of that the pulse to PulseX ratio will try to shift back towards that 3-to-1, potentially 4-to-1, because now we're going to have a tremendous amount of fear, uncertainty, and doubt in the system, and less buy and burn pressure. And we're seeing that now with this big spike, where Pulse is now gaining on PulseX. This is the inverted from the way people normally look at it. Normally, you'd look at it like PulseX versus Pulse. So you came down and you tapped the 382 exactly, and it's going to try to build some support here. Probably create some sort of a pattern. Not sure what that looks like. Maybe a ascending triangle or something. Chop in here. Potentially break lower. We'll have to see how this plays out. Remember, like, one thing Hexagons aren't good at is paying respects to Bitcoin and Ethereum. Our market's largely dependent on what they're going to do. So, I know you guys don't want to see those kinds of charts, but Bitcoin looks really good right now. And if Bitcoin does well, we will do well. So just keep that in mind. In terms of PulseChain, it's been rolled over. Remember, the bridge topped out somewhere in here. So the bridge filled up, or I'm sorry, got unclogged. There was about 150 billion. I'm sorry, 150. I wish it was 150 billion. 150 million dollars got through somewhere in this general range, and then the price chart started to roll. And the signal was, you could have gotten this a long time ago. The signal was here on this candle that got bought back up, because it was just such a nasty sell signal, because it totally invalidated this trend. And yeah, even though it got bought back up, it's kind of it's kind of telling you where the price is going to go, right? So you're in free fall. You're coming down to the 382 level. Typically, the place where, Hans HEX always famously says granny investors start to buy here between the 0.5 and the 618. And that looks like to be below SAC price for Pulse. So, I mean, I expect this level personally. PulseX, kind of doing the same thing. It's already below SAC price. In terms of price decline, you could be seeing anywhere from 35 to 50%. HEX is starting to actually gain against Pulse. It's a positive sign. It means like a lot of these guys that were exiting HEX into Pulse or into PHEX or whatever they were going to exit into are starting to run out of ammunition. And so it's starting to try to recover that 100-to-1 ratio of Pulse per hex. So that's looking pretty good. And then PHEX versus Pulse, it's up 27.93% against Pulse in 4.5 days. It's well above 100-to-1. It's actually at 120-to-1, which is kind of where a lot of this wick action occurred across the ecosystem. So yeah, you're kind of testing into that. This is like the new range to test to see. And the most important chart here is the HEX to PHEX ratio. This is starting to bottom out. So, however long this is going to take, HEX is going to try to get back to parity. And the debate's not settled yet on what's going to happen here in terms of the divorce, so to speak, of PHEX and HEX. But I would like to think that people are going to, understand that this is going to be an oscillating metric for a long time, because there's certain value propositions for both chains that I've talked at extensively in different streams over the last few weeks. That because HEX is immutable and it's like a self-correcting system. If enough people don't stake, the APYs get better. If not enough people abandon HEX, the supply gets more and more centralized and people that actually believe in it, and not so many that can dump it forever. And you know, if everybody can transact on PHEX and it's a faster chain, that's not necessarily always good for price. We've seen that the fastest money doesn't always equal the most valuable money. Matter of fact, Bitcoin and Ethereum are some of the slowest monies with the most problems, but yet they still have tremendously high values. And that's a function of supply and demand and being able to get the supply in the hands of those who believe in it. Hedron on Pulse has done tremendously well. It's held its structure against Pulse and now broken out to the upside. And same for Icosa. So Hedron and Icosa are actually looking tremendous on that chain. They've been some of the best plays in terms of stable long-term plays. So keep an eye on them. And then on the HEX side, the Hedron and Icosa pairs are just getting decimated. Like these are generational buy opportunities. And I set this fractal up recently on Hedron because I thought, you know, if this plays out anything like it did the last time we were at these levels, you'd get a capitulation down low to these, like, you know, $200 for a billion, $300 for a billion coins. Can you imagine? You can get a billion Hedron on Ethereum for $340 right now. You could get 10 to 20 billion and then take them to the auctions and get HEX T shares at 85, 95% off over there. Those are going to be very valuable in the future. So I think that most of this is being completely overlooked because there's just so many places to look right now for yield that most people's attention has been diverted away from what's the most important stuff, which is buying the best deal wherever it is and getting the yield. Some of the yield's more risk-free and some of it's less risk. And we've kind of touched on that too over the course of the stream. And then Inc. This is the thing that matters the most in terms, because we're not getting paid to LP anymore. So now the only way you can get paid is through Inc. And because Inc. kept going up in price originally, that was what was like a positive field, like a positive feedback loop where the APRs kept getting better. There was more incentive to continue to provide more liquidity, and it made a very robust ecosystem while that lasted. Now this is in a downtrend, and now they're all kind of coming down together. So I'm looking to reload on this one under $15. This is like a range where, you know, it starts to get attractive again down here in the reload zone. It's just a matter of time. That would mean that the price can still fall another 50% from here in terms of Inc. I think that's all I really want to say, other than you know, HEX on the weekly. We're at a pivotal moment. I think there's enough people that are being fudded right now that HEX can go even lower. You know, get rejected off this levels and go test sub penny levels. That's been quite apparent to me. And yeah, I think that's pretty much my hot take on the charts.
Rawr! I hear the bear. What are we looking for, just fundamental wise, that could change sentiment or, you know, make us reverse course through this?
Yeah. So what you want to keep an eye on is like the bridge. So if more money starts being piled up on this bridge, let's say there's like you see this 150 million go up to like 200 million in a few days. That might come, but it might come after you see a move on Bitcoin. So like if Bitcoin was to break out and head into the mid 30,000s, and Ethereum was to rise as well, potentially that rise in price might allow a lot of where the money is in crypto to feel more inclined to take a risk on PulseChain. So then you might start to see, as the price of Ethereum rises, you might see HEX take a bump up too. And you might see people come across that bridge, right? So the other thing too is like just fundamentally like seeing Pulse and PulseX come down to these levels down here where we didn't really get a lot of chance to trade with any significant volumes. Look at how these volumes are very low down here. To give big bag holders a chance to see how these volumes are declining, it really did take a lot of volume here today to push this down. So that's a positive thing, because it means that you're going to have a tremendous amount of fear or pressure to push this thing down into here. And so it's actually bullish that it took this much volume to get it down. What would be roughly like 15%. But if Bitcoin and ETH hold well, I don't see anything reason why this can't start to try to make a recovery, and you'd want to watch this against the 21 daily bull market support band. And fundamentally, besides that, obviously CEX listings are bearish because if you're in a centralized exchange and you want to hold an asset, or you want to grow your net worth, you want this market to mature, but you don't want to lose all the asset during the run up. So for a centralized exchange to list here and encourage people to deposit their funds, it's to their benefit to let this thing crash so they can buy up all the supply here and then create a market to go higher. And it's just the same thing. The market's always going to do the opposite of what retail thinks they're going to do. I mean, it's a dog eat dog world out there, and that's the reality of the situation. But once we're past this next 6 months to 9 months, I think if you held through the pain, and even if you brought in more, like, you'd be very, very happy. I'm excited. By the way, I might sound bearish, but I'm actually very excited right now. I like this stuff happening because it means that we can finally get out of this crap situation that we're in, that we've been in for like 500, 600 days.
I have no emotional response to any of the bearish stuff. I'm like, cool. I'm excited. Mm-hmm. I want to ask though on SEX listings, CX listings, mm-hmm. Binance. If Binance were to say they're going to list PulseChain, would that be a buy the rumor, sell the news? What do you guys think?
Yeah, you'd almost want them to just list it and not say anything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the ultimate. That'd probably be a big top signal, honestly. If we're pumping hard and then Binance is like capitulates into listing it because they've been so adversarial to HEX and like Richard Hart over time. Yeah, that'd probably be a sell the news event.
Is that the wolves?
A classic.
Is that the wolves? People talk about wolves coming into PulseChain. Look out! Are those types of things? You think they'll happen where it'll be some players come in, buy a bunch of supply, and then maybe become the non-benevolent whales?
I mean, it's possible, but they gotta put in a lot of money to get that amount of position. I guess, yeah, you could say like the situation Axis was outlining, where the prices get so low you can get a big percentage of the supply. Say hypothetically, CZ wants to buy up most of the supply and just sell down every single pump that goes forward. I guess that's possible, technically. But then they have to also support the prices that those low prices. They would be putting in value into the system at the lows. So like they would actually be providing a benefit in the short term.
Yeah, I think Chaos Creations makes a good point. Don't hold your breath on Binance. They're committed adversaries. What we really want to see here out of all this is we want to see these hexagons that are building cool stuff. They need to keep launching the cool stuff. I'm looking at you, Hex Scout, Ju Young doing HSI Watch, the Staker app team, the guys creating the fiat on-ramps like 0x Coast and Rackham Rochelle's exchange, these direct fiat on-ramps into Pulse. And we also need the devs to clear out all the shit tokens that are copy tokens that have no value or just aren't, not that you can't delete them out of the blockchain, but you need to make them hidden away. And so there's less confusion. There needs to be less confusion and easier on-ramps. If we can get a few of those things going, we can start to get detached from the Ethereum and Bitcoin price movements. If you truly want this thing to succeed, we need those things. And we need them, this year, hopefully.
Well, get this one question before we wrap up too, from EP. Do we think HEX will outperform everything? I think it's an interesting question because the PulseChain, PulseX is the new hype. HEX, Hedron, even everything related to HEX is kind of like, there's this new thing here. Why are we still trading them? What are they going to do? A lot of people who are excited about them are, shiny object syndrome, but within the ecosystem, which has pros and cons. But HEX being at a penny, and you got PulseX below SAC price, PulseChain barely over SAC price, incentive tokens in the mix now. Is there a case for HEX, from now, from the local bottom or so, outperforming everything? and I want time horizon.
Mm-hmm. What do you guys think? I know I'm in that camp that Hex can still outperform everything in cryptocurrency, minus like the occasional Pepe or something. Like anything that's long financially, like a financial blockchain innovation like Hex, it's going to outperform everything. Period.
Yeah.
Especially if like what I've been saying becomes true, right, about the supply.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm definitely more in that camp than like, yeah, I'm definitely more in the camp that Hex will outperform everything, especially if it becomes, you know, it is like the quote unquote store of value on PulseChain at the very least. So there will be a certain segment of the user base taking profits into it and staking it out long term and or short term. And yeah, I don't see why not. Like I definitely think Hex will probably outperform everything long term. You know, PulseX, everything will outperform it for some time, but I think it'll bring Hex up with it, and then Hex has its chance to outperform after it's brought up by it as well.
Broke up there for a moment, didn't get the last 10 seconds.
Oh, I agree.
And before,
It's like, you know,
before Access, you get into it too.
You call these angles, man. It's like you call the price action, and if it's not in the direction people want, they're upset. It's like, yeah, that's why I usually don't talk during certain times, and that's like, that's all I can say, man. It's better just to stay quiet a lot of times.
The most straightforward argument, though, is people bring up is why would Hex outperform everything? It's not at its bottom. It's not at its all-time low. PulseChain has launched its new 10,000x meme narrative. How do you rationalize about that? How do you say that Hex is going to outperform everything when it's not the new?
Because the same guys that hold Pulse and PulseX were the guys that had all the Hex, so nothing changed. That's why, because this is supply and demand. It's not. Hold on, what chart am I? Okay, coin. I'm trying to show you guys on the chart what I'm talking about. Like the same guys that have all the Hex have all the Pulse and PulseX. It's not new. The distribution is the same. Understand, please. Like, so all that matters is the downside. Like, if this downside goes, actually, from the very beginning of Hex to the bottom, 98.65%. Where are we at now? 97.79%. That's what you need, is you need full capitulation to the lows. And then this can repeat. Literally, it's a reset on the chart. Like, this can literally repeat. Potentially. Not guaranteed. But we need to get that last flush low. You know, this thing's not going to go up until all of the people that are scared are out. I don't care if it takes 2 months or 10 months. They will flush out here, and then we can get the rip. Because this thing can turn around quickly when it does. It's not hard to pump Hex. It's a question of, is it worth even keeping it propped up? That's the question. And if you have all the supply, then it might be worth keeping propped up.
Mm-hmm. Especially because of 30-day rolling stakes or 14-day rolling stakes. You know, there's really good yielding and passive income opportunities with having a high Hex price, and people and outside people providing liquidity at those levels to also earn a passive income as well, or a income. Maybe it's not passive if they're LPing. Yeah.
Is it right to say that the average person doesn't think the way that a market maker does, and therefore sometimes we don't understand? Because I always try to put it in terms I understand, and I'm like, there's no way this could happen this way. But it really has to do with somebody making a market and what's their motivation for making a market.
Mm-hmm. Because the guy, so yes, you can make a market if you know there's not enough ammunition after you make this move for them to dump it back down to here. How do you confirm? How do you make sure that they don't have enough ammunition? Because you bought it all down here. That's how you know. And then you can create price floors, and you can be in here profit taking over time because you've bought back all your time here. Mm-hmm. You and along with everybody else. And then because the price goes up so fast, it forces other people to have to reaccumulate a new range, which then creates structure going into that next bull run. With any help from Ethereum and Bitcoin, you can really get a nice leg up in this next bull, and we can go to multi-dollar targets. That has not changed. Nothing about that has changed.
Beautiful.
You know, and by the way, you know, I'm not saying that Pulse and PulseX can't overperform, but we don't want. It's kind of a catch-22 because if PulseChain does a 10,000x, well, now you're back with the fee problem again because you're basically back to where you started on Ethereum.
I thought we solved that already. I thought we got rid of the high fees. God damn it.
So it's like,
For
you
now.
know, would you rather not that Hex pumps and then Pulse stays, you know, let's say it only does like a 500x or a 1000x, but yet fees are still manageable? Or would you rather Pulse pumps like crazy and Hex just pumps a little more? It's weird. Like you got to think about these things, guys. Like it's not just new thing go up. It's not like that because the guys that have the Pulse and PulseX sacrificed with Hex that they got back here when it was worth nothing. Okay, so yeah, sorry to be such a bear today, but I'm just trying to be realistic.
No, don't apologize, man. This is good information.